Morning, everyone. Welcome to Toad TV. I am Mary Beth.
I'm Helen.
And we are the Crafty Toads, the creative hands and minds behind Toad Hollow, where we dye yarn and make project bags. We have a podcast that is called the Crafty Toads, and on that we talk about all sorts of things crafty. And cross-stitching is what we're going to focus on today.
Yes, we have received several questions from people asking how we cross-stitch. Do we stitch in hand? Do we use a hoop? What needles we like? So forth. So since we were both starting a project today, we thought we'd go through the process and just show you how we do it.
Okay, so shall I go first since you have a meatloaf sitting on top of yours?
Generally, I have a cat sitting
Somewhere.
on my cross-stitch.
Somewhere.
I cross-stitch more pet hair than I do floss.
All right, my new project that I'm going to start is called Bloomtopia. It is a free pattern on Fat Quarter Shop. And what they are doing is they are having a fundraiser for Make-A-Wish Foundation. They are asking for a donation. If you download the pattern, you do not have to make a donation. I understand that sometimes you can't, and you still want to take part in it, but maybe the next time you make a donation somewhere else. So this is, they are suggesting $15 for the entire pattern. So we made the donation, and it will be released in 11 different sections, and the first one, or 12 will be the border. So the first one is this corner up here.
There you go.
Okay, on this pattern, they tell you what size, how many stitches it's going to be, so that if you're using a different count fabric, you can figure out how big a piece of fabric you need. And they did theirs on a 25 count Laguna, so they needed a 7 by 9¼ inch fabric, so that you have an idea of how much fabric you need. And then they have a list of the colors that you're going to need. I am doing mine in DMC since it's small pieces. I'm not going to use fancy floss on it, but some of the colors I didn't have, so I switched it out with something else that's close enough. And then what we both do is we make color cards, thread cards that have the number, and I usually put the design or the motif, the symbol, next to my number. One thing I don't like about this pattern is if you printed it in black and white, you wouldn't know the difference between pink and green and white. Well, I guess you'd know white, but pink and green, because it's the same symbol, just a different color square around it. But what I usually do is I'll put, like, if the symbols are the number or the letter A or a half moon or something like that, I put that next to the floss, so I know when I'm going to get my floss, I know exactly what color I need. Because very often the pattern and the color coding are not on the same page, so then you have to dig through your pattern to try and find it. So I have cut my fabric. I'm going to do mine on white, and so you can see how the colors will show up on it. Drusilla has brought her duck because video goes on, duck comes out, that's the way things go. This does have some white in it. However, I'm going to wait and see if it's in the middle of flowers, because if it's like in the middle of a daisy or something like that, with other colors around it, it won't matter. If it is just straight white on white fabric, then I'm going to have to change it because it won't show up.
So I am doing spring delivery by Scattered Seed Samplers. So this was, I copied the back of the pattern because I had the key and you can't really see what it was originally, because I totally changed out all the colors. The bunny, the brown was too dark for me. It was the whole thing was just a little too dark and primitive for me, so I went with lighter colors. Well,
That's Tabitha,
I pay the bills, Tabitha.
who's being displaced, who's not happy about that.
So this is my color card now.
Oh my God, I haven't seen your color card. It's so pretty.
So you can see just by the pattern that I have totally changed everything. And then I was picking my fabric because I am doing mine on a 32 count linen. And I originally wanted to use the green because I thought it would be really fun for spring. But there's a green that I've chosen, which does show up, but they're only like a few strands of grass in the Easter basket. So I just didn't think it was going to pop enough, so I'm going to use the gray. Plus the gray is a smaller piece of fabric. So I'm going to use this gray.
Look at those
And you can
against
see
the gray.
how much everything's just going to pop off against this gray.
Oh, so pretty.
So then what we're going to do is we're going to switch the angle of the camera so that you can see us each start. And since Maribeth's working on Ada, we'll show you her doing the Ada, and then we'll show you me just starting the linen, because the linen you go over 2 squares and Ada you go over 1.
Okay, I am doing mine on, I'm going to say 16 count Ada.
I would think so.
It's a piece of scrap that I had from another piece, from a larger piece. And just by looking at it, I'm going to say 16 count Ada. I try and make sure I have some things every time I sit down to stitch. I always have a good pair of sharp scissors. I only have one here, but usually we have about 17 of these because we constantly lose them.
It's a threader. It's a needle threader.
Then I have a pair of glasses that are 3 times my normal strength so that I can see the stitches because I'm blind.
Okay,
All right.
so we're gonna switch everything up.
This is take number 72 because we can't figure out how to get it so that it focuses on the right spot of the pattern. But here we go. These are the needles that we like to use. They're John James. On Amazon, you can get them in packs of 3 different sizes, 24, 26, and 28. Helen really likes the 28 to use with linen. I like the 26. Sometimes I use the 24 for when I'm doing 14 count Ada, but for the most part, we use 26 and 28. You can get the individual sizes as well, so you could just order 28s or 26s, however you please. All right, I am doing this, as I said, on 16 count Ada. I already started this on the last video, only you couldn't see it. So rather than start again, I'm just gonna take you through what I do. I start, usually, I like to stitch from right to left. So I normally start up here in the top right hand corner. However, since that piece hasn't been released yet, I'm starting over here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn my pattern. So now this is my top right hand corner, so I know which way to go. So I have already done the first 2 rows. You can see I did that. All right. Sometimes get a little bit of knot in your thread. Just work it through a little bit. Pull it out. All right. I am now on row 3. Okay, so I'm on row 3. And as I said, since I like to work from right to left, if it's not going the right way, I just turn the fabric around and go backwards. This is not going to be great for purists who like to make sure that the top bar is always going in the same direction, because when you switch your fabric around, then it switches around. However, I don't care. Nobody can see that close, and it's for me. It's for my pleasure. All right, so I am now going to come up in my next spot. And with Ada, you do 2 threads over 1 box. Okay. I'm in the wrong spot, so I'm just going to put that back down again. And go over to the right spot. Here we go. All right. So I'm coming up through from the bottom, and what I do is I do the down and up method in one movement. When I was originally starting, I did it in a hoop, and I made sure that my down was one full movement and coming up was another full movement. And I'll show you what I mean. Going down, I went down, pulled it all the way out, found the next box to come up, came all the way up, down like this.
The hoop also makes it slightly easier because it pulls your fabric taut, and your boxes may be easier to see because the thread is pulled so tight.
I
So
found
for beginners it works.
also for me to begin with, the X's were much neater. I thought that was going to be a problem, and then I picked up on the speed and realized that it doesn't bother me at all. All right, so now what I do is my down and up are the same movement, and the needle never leaves, the needle is never on the bottom of the thread trying to find a box coming up. It's just down and up in one movement, like so. And when I get to the end of this row, I'm going to turn my fabric around. So now that I'm again working from right to left, figure out where my next stitch is going to be, and just come up through the box. Again, if you get a little bit of a snafu, you just pull it out, and for the most part, in pulling it out, it works its way out of the knot, and continue on. One thing I do like to do to check periodically is to make sure I don't have, well, threads from my cloth getting caught in, which sometimes happen. I'll cut that out. But sometimes you get a snag back here and you have a big backlog of thread. So periodically I like to just check back there and make sure nothing like that has happened. Because it happens and I don't even realize it. All right. So that's 2 rows. So now I have just finished this row here. So the next 2 rows are going to be orange. So what I would do is I would just skip those 2 rows. I'm not going to cut my thread and start over again. What I'll do is I'll just skip the 2 boxes and come over here and start. And then when I'm done the turquoise, I will thread in the orange and just do the orange here and then all the other orange in the pattern. And that's how I stitch in hand. So I'm going to move over and let Helen take her spot under the spotlight and show you how to do it on linen.
Okay, so since I am starting from scratch, I figured I'd just quick show you how we thread the needle. This is a needle threader, and you just stick the threader through the eye of the needle. the floss through, and you pull it. And then when you're trying to do it to show everybody, it gets tangled. And
The
does not.
thread decides to be ornery.
So, there. Needle threaded. Easy peasy. Okay, so as we said, I am working on 32 count linen, which is the same size, finished product as a 16 count Aida. But what I am doing is I am going to stitch 2 over 2. So instead of going over 1 box, I'm going to go over 2 boxes.
Okay, so since mine didn't show, do you want to show, you know, starting where you started, like coming in and everything?
So Marybeth was saying that she comes in about 1.5 inches when she, you know, on the video that didn't work, 1.5 inches in and 1.5 inches down, and I would be 1.5 inches in and 1.5 inches up. I'm generally not that technical. I go, that looks good. I'll start there. I think I have enough. Swear to God. That's how I do it. I think I have enough to pull it around for whatever finishing I might want to do. So that looks good. Let's start. So I pull it through.
All right, so do you want to tell where you're starting on your pattern?
Okay, I'm starting in, sorry about that, the bottom right corner of my pattern, because I like to stitch up. If at all possible, I like to stitch up rather than stitching down. When I have to stitch down, I usually turn it around, so essentially I'm stitching up, but then sometimes I get confused on which way I'm reading the pattern. So if you just keep things simple, if I can stitch up and the pattern's going up, then we're good.
And you like to work from right to left as well?
Yes.
I think it's
And that
because
comes
we're
from-
right-handed.
Also reading knitting patterns.
Right, well also because we're right-handed, because I know when I'm trying to do it from the left, my thread is in the way of where the next...
Yeah, and when
stitch is supposed to go
I'm
down.
stitching in hand, it's much more fluid motion for me to go right to left.
Oh yeah,
than-
trying to go from left to right.
I can't do it.
Backwards.
It's up and down.
Right.
So, so I pull the thread through. This is the back of the fabric, and I leave myself a tail so that I can catch it. And I'm just going to hold on to that. The back. I'm going to get all this fabric out of the way. So then, if you're using Aida, then I would go down here, which is the box, but that's it. Right here is the first box, but that's not right. I have to go down to the second box, which takes some getting used to. Usually what I do when I'm first starting, because I do stitch on Aida a lot as well, so I have to get back into the rhythm of stitching on linen. So then I'm very simple. Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2. This is where I go down. And I do a little 1, 2, 1, 2 in my head. So now I've come down, and then I'm gonna make sure my tail is gonna get caught. And just that first stitch is just a little fiddly. But then I come up. And now I know my tail's caught and I can just go to town.
So now do you work from the bottom, like bottom?
My stitch starts in the top left corner to the bottom right corner, from the top right corner to the bottom left corner
Okay,
is my X.
okay.
So
I do it top left to bottom right, or bottom left to top right.
oh, okay, so we're the same except the leg.
Yeah.
See, when I do, so now I've come up in the top right and I'm going down into the bottom left. So that now it's a very simple motion for me to go over to the next stitch. But my stitches aren't right next to each other on the pattern. So I've got to go over 2 stitches, which is a good thing to show. So what I do is I've got my needle down in the bottom left, and then I go up and I count. And I go 1, 2, and I know that would be the stitch right next to this stitch. 1, 2, that's 2 stitches, 1 stitch over, and I have to go 2 stitches over, so I have to go over 1 more, and then I come up through here. And so essentially your X is taking over 4 boxes on your linen, which I'm not sure whether you can see or not.
This is where I get very, very, very confused.
And it does definitely take some getting used to.
Because to me, if it's going over 2 boxes, it should be going over 2 boxes, not 4 boxes,
Right.
which is what it's actually doing.
Which is where when I first started doing it, the 1, 2 got in, because I know I go over 2, so 1, 2, but now I have to go down 2. So now since I'm going backward, you don't know this because you can't see the pattern, but now my stitches are going this way, so I don't have the fluid of motion to go from one stitch to the next stitch. I have to stop, I take the needle from the top of the pattern thread,
The fabric.
material to the bottom, and here
Right.
comes help. So
This is deadly. Don't know whether he's going to actually show up or not.
wants to know what's going on. So that is how I stitch on linen. And as I said, it takes getting used to, but I love the way the finished product looks.
All right, so if you go up to the next row, it's got a bunch of, that'll go straight over. That's also in the orange, right?
No.
Oh, is that a different color?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I'll
Okay.
take them out. So if I were doing, so I'm going to have a row that goes from here over that way, and it's all stitches right next to each other. So 1, 2, 1, 2. And once you get the first X in when you're on linen, then it's easier, especially when you're going, they're all next to each other, because then you know you just skip that hole there and you go to just 1 over. And you've already, you know, I mean, that part's easy because that's right next to it. I'm not sure whether you can hear my cat. He's being adored by Mary Beth.
Who is trying to keep him from knocking into the camera so that it doesn't blow this whole contraption out of whack.
So it's just the stitching in hand. It's such a easy fluid. And then like Mary Beth, if I were, you know, I've finished my row and I have the exact same row up here, so going back this way, so what I do is I turn, just so I get the fluid motion as much as possible, I'll turn everything upside down. And go back that way. hopefully that helped some people.
Okay, so do you want to just anchor off your thread underneath and show them, if you finish your color, how you anchor the thread underneath?
Oh, sure. Generally what I do is I just sew under my stitches like that. And then I'll go back again. Or come back, you know, kind of like that.
And that's really all you need to do.
Right.
Because this is not going to be in something that's going to get a lot of use, like banging around or putting your head on or anything like that.
I mean, if it were going to be like a pillow that would be handled a lot, I think in my finishing what I would do is I would put stabilizer on the back of the fabric just to keep the stitches in place.
Okay.
But really that's all you need to do.
Since it's not coming undone.
Right. And then I just snip it and move on to the next section or change my color. So hopefully showing you guys, it's a very small handwork, so that trying to show it on the camera, I'm hoping it's going to come through. But let us know what you think. If it helped or something that we didn't show that you'd like to see, just let us know. And we will talk to you soon.